Hello, my name is Sarah, and I grew up in a small rural town in Colorado. Life here was simple, and I always dreamed of a peaceful, loving family of my own. Little did I know that my marriage would become one of the most challenging chapters of my life, testing my patience and resilience in ways I could never have imagined. I met Andrew through mutual friends. He was charming, confident, and seemed to have everything figured out. His intelligence and charisma drew me in, and before long, we were engaged. We married quickly, excited to start a life together, and for a while, everything seemed perfect. We settled into a cozy home, and soon after, our son Ethan was born. I thought we were building a beautiful life together, but cracks began to show as time went on. At first, they were small things, dismissive comments, moments of impatience, but those cracks deepened, revealing a side of Andrew I had never seen before. In the beginning, Andrew seemed like the ideal husband. He was attentive, supportive, and took pride in our little family. I felt fortunate, thinking I had found someone who truly cared for me and our son. But slowly, his true nature began to surface. It started subtly, interrupting me during conversations or dismissing my thoughts. I'd mention something about Ethan's milestones or share a small victory from my day, but Andrew would cut me off with a wave of his hand, saying, "Not now, Sarah. I've had a long day." At first, I excused it, thinking he was just stressed from work, but it became a pattern. His words turned colder, his patience thinner. Parenting decisions became another battleground. Whenever I brought up concerns about Ethan or asked for his input, Andrew would shrug and say, "You're the mother. Figure it out." I was left to handle everything on my own: doctor's visits, school events, even the sleepless nights when Ethan was unwell. Andrew seemed to believe that as long as he was providing financially, his responsibilities ended there. One evening, I cooked dinner after a particularly exhausting day of managing the house and looking after Ethan. Instead of appreciating the effort, Andrew sneered, "Couldn't you make something better? This is barely edible." His words stung, but I swallowed my frustration, hoping to avoid another argument. Over time, these moments piled up. The man I thought I married, the caring, understanding partner, was nowhere to be found. His dismissiveness turned into control, and his indifference grew into outright contempt. Yet, I kept telling myself to endure it for Ethan's sake, hoping things would improve. But deep down, I knew that this wasn't what a family was supposed to feel like. Things took a dramatic turn one afternoon. I was rushing down the stairs to fetch some groceries when I tripped and fell hard. The sharp pain in my arm was unbearable. Andrew, irritated by my call for help, reluctantly drove me to the hospital. The doctor confirmed that my arm was broken and would need to be in a cast for 3 months. As we returned home, I tried to stay optimistic despite the pain. I thought perhaps now Andrew would step up and help, at least for the time it would take for my arm to heal. But as soon as we entered the house, his attitude shattered any such hopes. "So, what's for dinner?" he asked, standing casually by the kitchen counter. I looked at him in disbelief. "Andrew, I can't cook or do much of anything with one arm. I need you to help with the housework, at least until I recover." He leaned back, arms crossed, with a smug look on his face. "Help? Sarah, housework is women's work. Don't embarrass yourself by asking me to do your job." I stared at him, speechless, as frustration and anger bubbled inside me. Before I could respond, Ethan, who had been quietly playing in the living room, walked in and looked at Andrew. "Why can't you help Mom, Dad? Isn't she hurt?" Andrew scoffed, dismissing him. "This isn't your concern, Ethan. Stay out of it." But Ethan didn't back down. He looked Andrew straight in the eye and said, "If you won't help her, maybe you're not a very good dad." Andrew's face flushed with anger, but for once, he didn't have a response. Ethan's words hung in the air, and for the first time, I felt like I wasn't alone in seeing Andrew for who he truly was. That night, lying in bed with my arm throbbing in pain, I knew I couldn't do this anymore. Andrew's lack of care wasn't just hurting me, it was affecting Ethan too. Something had to change, and I needed to find the courage to make it happen. The following days were a whirlwind of pain, both physical and emotional. Managing daily tasks with one arm was nearly impossible, and Andrew made no effort to lighten the load. Instead, he barked orders, demanded meals, and acted as if my injury was an inconvenience to him. Ethan, however, began stepping up in small but significant ways. He would fetch me water, help with simple chores, and even sit by my side to keep me company. One evening, as I struggled to fold laundry, Ethan sat next to me and said, "Mom, why do you let Dad treat you like this? He doesn't even care that you're hurt." His words stung because they were true. "Ethan," I said softly, "sometimes people don't realize how their actions affect others." He frowned, looking older than his years. "Maybe it's time for us to do something about it." That night, I stayed awake, thinking about Ethan's words. I realized that staying in this marriage wasn't just hurting me. It was teaching my son the wrong lessons about love, respect, and family. I couldn't let him grow up thinking this was normal. The next morning, Andrew demanded his usual coffee before heading to work. My arm was in a cast, and every movement sent sharp pains shooting through my body. For the first time, I said, "No, Andrew. Get it yourself." He turned to me, shocked. "What did you just say?" I said no, I replied firmly. "I'm not your servant. I'm your wife, and I deserve respect. If you can't see that, maybe this marriage isn't worth saving." Andrew's face twisted in anger. "You think you can make it on your own without me? Don't be ridiculous." "I know I can," I said, my voice unwavering. "Ethan and I deserve better than this." Andrew stormed out, slamming the door behind him. As I stood there, my heart pounding, Ethan walked over and hugged me. "We'll be okay, Mom," he whispered. "We don't need him." That day, I made the decision to leave. I called my parents and explained everything. They immediately offered us a place to stay, assuring me that Ethan and I would always have their support. It was the lifeline I needed. The day Ethan and I packed up and left was both terrifying and liberating. I had spent years convincing myself to stay for the sake of stability, but as I loaded our bags into the car, I realized that leaving Andrew was the first step toward a better life for both of us. When we arrived at my parents' house, they welcomed us with open arms. My mother hugged me tightly, her voice full of concern. "Sarah, you've been so strong to endure this for so long. But you're home now, and we're here for you." Ethan adjusted quickly to the new environment, finding comfort in the warmth of his grandparents. As for me, I focused on regaining my independence. My parents encouraged me to heal and supported me as I started looking for work. Although I hadn't worked outside the home in years, I was determined to build a future for myself and my son. Andrew, however, didn't make things easy. He bombarded me with calls, alternating between anger and pleading. "You can't leave me, Sarah," he said one night. "We're a family. Come back and I'll change." But I had heard those promises before, and they always led back to the same cycle of disrespect and neglect. I calmly told him, "Andrew, this isn't about you anymore. It's about what's best for Ethan and me. I've made my decision." Over time, Andrew's calls became less frequent, though his anger lingered in the occasional message. But I refused to let his bitterness affect me. With every day that passed, I felt stronger, more capable, and more at peace. Ethan, too, began to flourish. He thrived in school and even joined a local soccer team, making new friends and finding joy in a fresh start. Seeing him smile again reminded me why I had made this difficult choice. As the weeks turned into months, Ethan and I settled into a routine. My parents' unwavering support gave me the stability I needed to focus on rebuilding our lives. I secured a part-time job at a local bookstore, which not only helped financially, but also gave me a sense of independence I hadn't felt in years. Slowly but surely, I began to feel like myself again. Andrew, however, was not ready to let go. He continued to delay the divorce proceedings, using every excuse he could think of. "We can work this out," he said during one of our rare conversations. "Ethan needs both his parents." But by this point, I was resolute. "Ethan needs parents who respect each other, Andrew, and you show me time and time again that you're unwilling to change. This marriage is over." His resistance persisted until one day Ethan, tired of his father's empty words, took matters into his own hands. "If you really cared about us, Dad," Ethan said during a phone call, "you'd let Mom move on and stop making everything harder." Andrew's silence on the other end of the line spoke volumes. I think for the first time he realized that even his own son saw through his manipulations. Shortly after that, the divorce was finalized. I was granted custody of Ethan, and we received a fair division of assets, including financial support that would help us get back on our feet. With the divorce behind us, Ethan and I embraced our fresh start. I found a full-time job managing a small community center, a position that allowed me to support Ethan while also being there for his milestones. He excelled in school, and his confidence grew with every success. Watching him thrive was the greatest reward I could have asked for. Andrew occasionally sent messages, photos of himself or long-winded apologies, but they no longer held any power over me. Ethan, ever the sharp-witted one, would edit his father's pictures into humorous memes, laughing off the man who once caused us so much pain. Years later, as Ethan prepared for college, I reflected on how far we had come. I had feared leaving Andrew would break us, but instead, it had made us stronger. We had built a life filled with respect, laughter, and love, everything that had been missing in our old home. Years passed, and the life Ethan and I rebuilt became something I could only have dreamed of during those difficult days with Andrew. Ethan graduated from college with honors and started a career he was passionate about, making me incredibly proud. His resilience and determination were a testament to the strength we found together as a family. As for me, I found peace in the independence I had earned. I stayed close to my parents, cherishing the bond that had grown stronger through their unwavering support. Eventually, I even found companionship again, though this time I approached relationships with clarity and boundaries. I learned that love should never come at the cost of self-respect. Andrew faded into the background of our lives. His occasional attempts to reconnect with Ethan were met with polite but distant responses. While I don't harbor anger anymore, I've made my peace by accepting that some people never change. Letting go of that anger freed me to focus on the happiness Ethan and I had built. Today, I often sit in my cozy living room, reflecting on how far we've come. The once timid and dependent woman I has grown into someone strong, independent, and full of life. The journey wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Ethan and I built a life filled with love, mutual respect, and a deep understanding of our worth. I share my story not out of bitterness, but to remind anyone reading that it's never too late to reclaim your life. Walking away from what holds you down isn't easy, but sometimes it's the only way to rise. And when you do, you'll discover just how strong you truly are. Thank you for reading Sarah's journey of resilience and rediscovery. Her story is a reminder that no matter how difficult life may seem, the courage to stand up for yourself can lead to a brighter, happier future. If you enjoyed this story and found it inspiring, please like this video and share it with others who might need a little encouragement. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories like this one. Your support means the world to us.